Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Fertility Podcast, the place where we dive deep into all things fertility. I'm Dr. Brenna Squires, a clinical psychologist and fertility support coach, here to bring you the knowledge, resources, and expert insights you need to feel confident along your journey to parenthood. So let's get started. We can all agree that period pain is awful. And in my opinion, it's one of the worst parts of the menstrual cycle. Some women experience pain several days before and during their menstrual cycle, while other women also experience pain throughout the menstrual cycle, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for even months. And pain is so common, we have believed the lie that it's normal, when in fact, pain is a sign that something is off. There's something off with our hormones, there's something off with the blood in our body. But what can we actually do about these things besides rest or take pain relievers? Well, that's actually what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode. So let's get back to today's topic and today's guest. I'm going to be speaking with Juliet Owen Nuttall. She is a former firefighter turned fertility well-being practitioner and the co-founder of the non-invasive method, helping women feel fabulous and fertile over 40. She is a trained shiatsu and NLP practitioner, and she creates healthy protocols based on the person's fertility personality. So welcome, Juliet. I'm so glad that you're here to talk about this today.
Me too, because I believe that women really need to be educated on this subject massively.
Yes, I am so looking forward to hearing your take on this topic because it wasn't until a few years ago that I actually learned that period pain is a sign that something is wrong. I lived so much of my life thinking that it was normal and it was just something that we had to live with. So my first question to you is, why do you think it's not common knowledge that period pain is actually a sign that something is wrong? And to top that, why is it so important for women to really understand this?
So a lot of women we're passed information down from our mothers, our grandmothers, aunties, and the common knowledge is that, well, it's just something you have to live with because so many of us go to, so in the UK, it's our GP. In the States, it's probably just the doctor or maybe the gynecologist. But really, there's no holistic viewpoint on how what's going on with your periods. You know, my story was right from my teens, lots of pain, lots of issues, and going to the GP and them saying, okay, well, we just put you on the contraceptive pill. That should do it. That should take care of it. And nothing else was said. So it was like, oh, okay, so that's it. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until I started training in Chinese medicine that I realized that it was an indicator that something was wrong, but not so much as in, there's something wrong with you. Sometimes there can be more issues underlying, but it was that this was not normal.
Mhm.
But we're led to believe that it is normal and that there's really not a lot we can do about it. And,
Yeah.
you know, GPs, doctors, they're not educated in women's health. There is very little research on women's health. There's very little
Yeah.
help, out there to assist women in something that will be with them for 20, 30 years, maybe,
Yeah.
sometimes maybe longer.
Yeah.
And, when I started, really researching it, I was like, wow, we just put up with this. We just take it like it's something that we should deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just lack of education out there because the pharmaceutical industry will just prescribe, a pill. They're not looking at a holistic perspective in, well, actually, let's rebalance your body and you won't
Yeah.
experience this.
Yeah. And I like that you said education. There's a lack of education. And I think that is coupled with what you said earlier. There's a lot of misinformation out there that gets spread down from person to person, from generation to generation, that this is just something that you have to deal with and you can't really do anything about it. And so that's
Mm.
what this podcast is all about, educating you in what you can do about what's going on in your body, because there's so many things that we can do to bring us back to balance. And so let's dive a little bit deeper into period pain and what causes period pain.
So, one of the main causes of period pain is your uterine lining. So, often, if you have period pain, you may have fibroids, you may have a thicker uterine lining, and it's the contractions of your body trying to shed the uterine lining, which is causing the pain. And in Chinese medicine perspective, without going kind of too much into the words, it's it's classed as stagnation. It's where that the body's flow is not there. So the body's like trying to release, but the energy is not there. There's maybe not enough blood. There's, the body's like struggling to release something that is completely natural for to happen for a woman.
Wow, that's an interesting way of saying that, because I never really thought about it like that. You hear that it's the contractions and that's what's causing the pain, but the way that you put it is it's natural to release the blood. It's natural
Yeah.
to it's a natural part of the menstrual cycle, but the struggle is what's not natural, and the struggle is what causes the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. So many women, we may be following certain diets. We may, you know, we may not be eating enough. We may be eating the wrong kinds of food. So then it's to do with, again, I'm trying not to go too much into speak, but it's to do with the quality of the blood.
Mm,
How much blood is available and the quality of the blood in the female reproductive system and how much is there to be released, because a lot of women may be experiencing iron deficiency, so again the oxygenated blood is not there, and so when you can rectify that, the the pain won't be there because the body has enough resources. So it's basically, the
mm,
stagnation is a lack of resources. So
wow.
in my instance, it was 10 years plus of eating disorders. There were no reserves for my body. So your body needs a certain amount of reserve
Mm,
to do its job. And if
yeah.
there's not there, it's going to be like, I can't do my job properly.
And that screaming that your body is doing is manifesting in pain.
Yeah. It's saying, hey, can you listen to this pain? But because we're conditioned to, well, it's normal,
Mm,
we just dismiss it. And, in my case, I
mm,
dismissed it. But then when I realized that actually it was not normal and that my body was talking to me and saying, hey, something's not right, particularly in my case with eating disorders, you know, abusing my body for many, many years, the resources weren't there for
mm,
my body to do what it needed to do. Your
mm.
body does need to do this cycle. It's very important for a woman to have a healthy menstrual cycle, but it doesn't have to control your life. It doesn't have to impact your life in the way in which so many women get impacted by.
Yes, let's go a little bit deeper into that. So, what is a healthy menstrual cycle? What is it not necessarily supposed to look like, but what would be the ideal?
Well, I'm going to go off by myself.
Okay.
Every woman is going to be different. So if so I happen to be menstruating right now, okay? So this is perfect. So it's going to be a good, healthy blood flow. I do not focus on the length. A lot of people are fixated on the length of the cycle. I don't focus on that. However, my cycle is very regular. If all of a sudden I know my cycle is 26 to 28 days, if all of a sudden that changed, my body be saying something's not right. A good, healthy blood flow, bright red blood, and no pain. So, you might get so I would say you would get sensations that the body is, shedding, but no pain. Um, a lot of women would, experience pain down the legs, down the back. I used to have that. So, a healthy flow, but again, it's then saying, okay, I'm menstruating right now. I need to just take a step back. I need to just allow my body to do this process. So again, it's not and there shouldn't be any clotting. So it's happening, and maybe it's a slight inconvenience to your life, but it really doesn't need to be this mass issue where there's major amounts of pain, uncomfortable, the fact that you may need to miss work, things like that. I believe we need to adjust our life around our menstrual cycle, but I don't believe it should get in the way. I don't believe that it should impact us.
Yeah, so a normal flow with no clotting. What about spotting before or after the period?
No, you shouldn't really get that either. You should have like almost like a clear, like clean, like break. You might get a little bit for a couple of days after, but again, your body should have shed everything that it needs to. And it's like, we've cleaned out. Let's start again.
Yeah, so we want a clear start, a clear stop. We want it to be bright red, and it's just a continuous flow with no clotting. And anything outside of that would, I guess, be considered abnormal or not ideal.
Yeah, not ideal. I mean,
Yeah.
there is no hard and fast rule to what it should look like because every woman is going to be different.
Yeah.
But and most women will know what their normal is. Mine was completely flipped on its head. So for me to be like, it just appears, and I'm like, oh, I know it's happening
Mhm.
because I will feel the sensations, but it's not how it used to be, where I'm lying on the floor, rolling around in agony, going to A&E,
Yeah.
having to take high dose of painkiller,
Mhm.
unable to function. Um, it's happening, but it's not impacting, and that's what I always say. I don't want it to impact your life, and if it
Yeah.
is, then
Something's
you
off.
need to be addressing that.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on estrogen? Because now it's coming to light that a lot of women are having more pain, and there's a lot of things out there that are triggering estrogen, are contributing to more estrogen. And there's this thing about estrogen dominance. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So that was something that I experienced and was never picked up by my doctor. Even when I had the diagnosis of infertility, had cysts, fibroids, it wasn't until I did my research and I discovered that this was all contributed to the fact that I had
Mm,
estrogen dominance.
mm,
So it's the toxins that we are ingesting every day. And it these are not some of them are avoidable, but some of them it's just not avoidable. The way in which we live, it's not avoidable. But you want to be like reducing the amount of plastics. So anything that has, plastic water bottles, plastic, not sort of anything with parabens in, anything that we're consuming or putting on our faces, our beauty products. It all wants to be as natural as possible. None of these artificial products, because they're going to be disrupting your endocrine system, which mimics, and the body is not, it sort of mimics estrogen, so the body's not able to release it.
yeah.
um, Things like pesticides, they're going to be having a contributing factor. And the reason why it's becoming so common is that it's the way in which we live. We're relying on a lot more of the food that is, fast, quick. Um, the way in which we live now, the food is the way it's produced, it's impacting our bodies. Also, we women, we live different lives than we did maybe 40, 50 years ago. We are all working. We're a lot of women. I work a lot with a lot of high achieving women because, again, we tend not to be taking care of ourselves as much as we would like,
Mhm,
or we could be following certain diets that actually having an impact. So, for example, for me, I'm a vegetarian, and my partner was like, you really need to have more protein. So then I was relying on soya protein, and that was impacting the amount of estrogen in my body. It was increasing the estrogen.
mhm,
And so I was like, I'm taking all this protein, my periods are getting worse,
mm,
and why am I putting weight on? Well, one of the contributing factors or the indicators of estrogen dominance is weight around the middle.
mhm,
So again, I was like, well, why is this happening? Why am I putting more weight on? And I realized after all the research that the soya products were contributing to estrogen dominance. Again, soya is it's sneakily put into food. And again, it's a GMO crop. So it's quite artificial, so it's having an impact on our hormones.
mm,
So estrogen dominance is a big issue for a modern woman.
mhm.
It's there, but you if you give your body the right environment, you will not experience estrogen dominance, but your body needs to be able to detox on a daily basis. I know if I am going in the wrong direction, I'll experience my body will go, hey, something's wrong, something's happening. It will show me my periods, and I'll be like, okay, so what am I doing? What have I stopped doing? Has life got busy? Have I stopped doing something? And I go, yes, I've stopped doing that. I've stopped taking that supplement. I forgot to order it. So just little simple things that can make the shift one way or the other.
Yes, and so I think you answered the question, but I just want to clarify, how does estrogen dominance contribute to painful periods?
So the estrogen builds a thicker lining in the uterus. So when you're on your period and it's
Mm,
shedding, there's more lining, and so therefore it's creating more contractions for it
mm,
to shed, and um then you've got the pain with the contractions.
mm. So someone who has more estrogen is more likely to have more pain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Some of the other so estrogen dominance is like an umbrella, and then you'll have other symptoms. So things like cysts, fibroids,
Mm,
painful breasts, mood swings. They are all an indicator, not all cases, but they'll
yeah.
always be an indicator of estrogen dominance.
Yeah. And how does estrogen dominance or too much estrogen, how does that impact egg quality, ovulation, and implantation?
Easiest way that I always explain it is it's like you're taking the contraceptive pill, because too much estrogen in
Wow.
the body will not allow. So when you've got, your body wants to always find a fine harmony of balance. So if you have too much estrogen, your body won't then produce more progesterone to balance it out. So
Mm,
it'll have excess estrogen, so the implantation can't occur because there's no progesterone to back up the implantation in the early stage of pregnancy, because there's too much estrogen. So it's a fabulous it's a fabulous natural contraceptive pill,
oh, no.
basically.
Oh my gosh. And so
And
that
that's
kind of
what was
explains,
happening.
I was just gonna say that's why it
Yeah,
explains that so many women who have estrogen dominance also experience infertility.
yeah, because it's a perfect natural contraceptive pill. It's like your body cannot produce more progesterone to balance it out. So the progesterone that's needed in the early stages of implantation is not occurring. It may or may not affect the egg quality. The egg quality is really down to again your diet. But you know, it's I thought I was a healthy vegetarian. So, when I was like, well, why is this happening to me? You know, I thought I was a healthy vegetarian, but it's kind of there are slight shifts that you need to do with your diet to improve the egg quality. So it's not always a straight contributing factor to the egg quality. It's just that with estrogen dominance, two of the main issues behind it are you may have poor gut health.
Mm.
So the absorption of the nutrients is not happening. And so that will contribute to your egg health. Also, if if you've got clogged liver,
Mm.
again, which is all the buildup of all the toxins, the blood quality is not as great. So then again, it's having a contributing factor to the egg health. So it's like an indirect
Mm.
issue with the egg health, not like it
Yeah.
doesn't contribute to estrogen dominance, doesn't say, oh, that's you've got poor egg health. It's the background. So we
Mm.
always have to be looking at a holistic perspective
Mhm.
and say, okay, so why is this happening? Well, the two factors are your your absorption of nutrients and the quality of your blood. And then when
Yeah.
you can turn those on their head and rectify those, the body will then produce the quality of the eggs will increase because the nutrients are coming in, and then the egg quality does increase.
Yeah. And I've heard you say this several times, the quality of your blood and the quantity of your blood. And the quality of your blood, I heard you say a couple of different things with it's determined by how well your liver can detox some of those toxins,
Yeah.
how well your gut can absorb nutrients. Are there any other things that impact the quality of your blood?
Um. So those are the two main factors.
Okay.
If it's really down to the diet and the way and what we're eating.
Mhm.
So if we're eating like what I would say, like I class them as kind of quite dry foods. If we're eating a lot of dry or processed foods, that affects the quality of the blood. The main thing that is going to increase the quality of the blood is the fresh greens, the fresh foods. But it's also like there are certain foods that have um lots of water in them, and it's about the amount of like water that's in your body. So it's not always just the water we're drinking, it's the hydrated foods that we're eating. So it all contributes to how the quality of the blood. We
Mm.
really don't eat enough greens, and I supplement with like a greens powder, because there's just not enough nutrients in the food that we're grown to produce the quality of blood that we need.
Yeah.
Basically, women do need to supplement with a good greens powder.
Yeah, well, you also
It's
made a really good point with when we eat too many dry foods, such as to include processed foods or other foods that are just like you said, dry, they don't give us the life giving nutrients that we need, like if we were to have fruits, vegetables, meat, and all of those things that are whole foods. And so it makes a lot of sense that if you want the good quality blood, which is mostly made out of water, we need to have more water, but not just drinking water, but we need to have the
yeah,
food that has the water still in it, like fruits and
yeah,
vegetables, things like that.
yeah, yeah. High water vegetables, high water
Mm.
fruits. So things
Okay.
like watermelon, cucumber, celery, they've all got lots of water in them.
Hmm.
There's a name for it, and I can never remember it, so I'm not going to try and remember it. But it's a name for the water that's in the food, and but also it's so some women go, okay, well, I'll just eat all salads, and it's like, okay, right. Then you have to look at the quality of. So, for example, at the moment in the UK, we've got a heat wave. So it's great for us to be eating these high water content foods because it's giving us more hydration. In the winter, that's not going to help because so in Chinese medicine they are
Hmm.
called cold foods.
Hmm.
So again, the womb needs warmth, the uterus needs warmth. So if you were to continue eating all of those foods throughout the winter, if you're in, say, a colder climate, that's actually going to have a more of a detrimental effect. So again, it's adjusting what we're eating. So it would be more in the winter, something like soups and stews. So again, it's hydrating foods, but it's not just like the salads, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so with that, what are some natural ways that we can help improve either the quality or the quantity of our blood aside from modifying the diet? Are there any other things that we can do to improve the quality and the quantity besides our
So I would
nutrition?
always, yeah, so I would always say good gut bacteria, making sure that your digestion is in good order. So, because what happens with estrogen dominance is if you are suffering from any kind of constipation or your bowels are slow or they're not processing the food properly, what happens is the last stage of the hormones leaving the body is through the bowel. So if food's sitting in the bowel, the excess hormones are reabsorbed back into the body,
Hmm.
and therefore that's raising the levels of estrogen.
Yeah.
So really getting that gut health
Mm.
in a good way, so that you're going every day, your stools are soft and they are hydrated.
Mm.
um you know if you are experiencing anything like IBS, having a look at the underlying causes of IBS, it's always linked to anxiety. So it's always looking at, like, again, the holistic view, looking at what else is going on.
Mhm.
I always recommend that women supplement with a good green supplement. So something like a mix, I take a mix of spirulina, moringa, um, wheatgrass, barley grass. So they're very high in green nutrients, and that makes such a difference to the quality of the blood.
Yeah.
We're not able to get that amount of green and iron into our system from the food we eat. It's just
Yeah.
not possible. You'd be eating like spinach all day long. So I would recommend a good green supplement so that your body is absorbing that, and then it's building the oxygenated blood. And I always recommend, well, for me it's like a green smoothie, so it's getting all of that into one glass a day, and then you sort of go, wow, I've had what I've had what I need. If you were to put on a plate what you put in that blender, you'd be
Mm.
like, I don't want to eat that. So it's smoothie done. um so they're just very simple tweaks. I I'm a real foodie, and because I've had eating disorders, I don't recommend restrictive diets. With fertility, I always say you can carry on eating the foods that you like, but let's add what your body needs
Mhm.
and not take away or
Yeah.
restrict.
Yeah. That's a good idea because there's too many times where we think we need to remove so many things that now you are under eating. And that's not
Yeah,
helpful either.
no, no,
No.
because there's a fine line between So women, we naturally carry more body fat, and we need a certain amount of body fat in order to menstruate. So top athletes or anybody with eating disorders or people that overtrain, it affects our menstrual cycle
Yeah.
massively. So we do need a certain level of body fat in order to menstruate
Yeah.
and to be to have that reproductive health.
Yeah.
So again, it's like if you're overtraining, that's going to have an effect.
Yeah. So what we're putting in, it's so important. And I want to ask a quick question about what we're taking out, and what are your thoughts on how best to take out some of those toxins, those buildup of toxins that might be
So
stored in the liver?
so I use two protocols. So my biggest favorite protocol is a coffee enema
Hmm.
because it builds the liver, it detoxifies the liver on a real kind of intense way. I also love doing it because it's a time when it's a time for me,
Mhm.
but also it's helping the bowel clean out any of the debris that's in there. And it's for me, it was the biggest turning point in my fertility journey. My liver, I just have a slight liver, like my liver function is not great. So again, that's why it was sort of picked up on the infertility journey. I was having like they were kept saying, "Oh, your liver function's not great." So, but when I realized and put like it all together, I was like, okay, so if I increase my liver function and how my liver's functioning, it's able to detox. So like that's my number one. Obviously, some people don't want to do it, you know. Um, so if they're not doing that, then I recommend like I have a process of using things like dandelion coffee, milk thistle, artichoke, any natural herbs that are going to help the liver detox. I use both because my liver function is not great. You know, I can't like the way my body processes fats and things is I don't eat a high amount of fat because my body can't process it. I'll know, and I don't really drink alcohol, and if I do, like I immediately feel it. So for me, it's a like a double protocol for my liver, but it's every individual case is different.
Yeah.
But
And
those are my top ones.
so the coffee enema, and then taking certain herbs that will help detox the liver. I actually recently started
Yeah.
doing coffee enemas as well, and one actually had two surprising benefits that I didn't even realize. One of them was that doing coffee enemas greatly reduced period pain. That one thing alone, I felt like it reduced the period pain. So when I set things aside that I was doing, that one thing, I almost didn't even have any. I don't know if you experienced
Wow.
that as well.
Yeah, it's because basically the liver is cleaning, and so your
Yeah.
your body your liver's able to
Hmm.
naturally balance the hormones.
Okay, so yeah, it's taking all that excess estrogen out, detoxing any of those toxins that we were talking about that have that buildup in the blood. And so it sounds like it's removing the things that are making your body scream, which is
Yeah.
contributing to that pain. And the other benefit that I thought was so interesting was that it gave like an emotional release. So if you were storing any negative emotions, I think Chinese medicine talks about this in other things like anger and frustration, and that's stored in the liver. And I'll probably talk about this in another podcast episode, but that was a really surprising benefit that I didn't really think about. And that's a different kind of pain,
Yeah.
that emotional pain.
Yeah. So the liver, so the element connected with the liver is the wood, and it's to do with emotional repression, early
Yeah.
life emotional repression. So the anger is stored in the liver,
Mm.
it's housed in the liver. So any of the kind of emotional indications is to do with like the buildup of energy. So if the liver is physically able to
Yeah.
detox, it's also able to release. So you're absolutely right. It will kind of release those emotions.
Yeah. And so, what are, I guess, as we're coming into a close right now, I'm just wanting any final thoughts that you have or specific steps that someone can take right now if they're experiencing so much pain. What are a couple of steps that they can do right now to start having a pain-free period next cycle?
So I would I would really start paying attention to your cycle. So instead of dismissing it and you know, going, oh gosh, because a lot of time when women ovulate, they then go into this negative spiral for the next 2 weeks of, oh my gosh, it's coming. And it's like, okay, your body is speaking to you. Listen to the symptoms, listen to what your body's saying, and then look at what you can do. Your body, when I work with clients, within the first menstrual cycle, massive changes have happened. So it doesn't have to take a long time. So, you know, I always recommend like the green supplement, get that in your body. Even if you're not doing anything else, take that green supplement because it will really help the body um, to build up the red blood cells, to really, really get that oxygenated blood in. And, start paying attention to it, work with it instead of against it, because again, anytime we're working against, it's creating tension in the body. Again, one of the things about your period pains is to do with like us holding tight or restricting, and so if the energy is not flowing in the body, then your periods are not able to flow. So really pay attention to it, because the women's health, our overall health, is shown through our menstrual cycle. So, you know, embrace what your body's telling you instead of like keeping it away. That's the biggest thing I always say.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. Embrace what your body's telling you because it is speaking. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing all that you know about how we can have a pain-free period.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, and thank you so much, listeners, for listening to this episode. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comment section. And if you have any thoughts for future episodes, also feel free to put that in the comment section. I'm excited for future episodes. Until next time. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Empowered Fertility Podcast. If you're looking for personalized support on your journey, whether that's through therapy or coaching, please reach out. Just complete the contact form linked in the show notes, and someone from my team will be in touch with next steps. Remember, you are not alone. You are not broken, and your story is not over. See you in the next episode.